We're now live, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I do make it 5 o'clock now, so can I welcome everybody to this committee meeting. It is the last planning applications committee of the municipal year, and also can I also welcome the county officers that are with us tonight. When we get to any items, if any members got any questions to ask, we do have those county officers here. Item number 1 is announcements. Could I ask that members just remain quiet for a minute's silence in memory of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh? Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you. As I said, this is the last meeting of the municipal year, and can I place on record as chair of the committee my thanks to everybody that's taken part over the last 12 months, and a special thank you for those people that, for whatever reasons, won't be with us next year. So I thank everybody for their contributions. Item number 2 are to receive apologies for absence from the meeting. I've had apologies from Councillor Wilson, and his substitute is Councillor Evans. Is that it, Victoria?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Which takes us on to item number 3, to confirm the minutes of the meeting on the 9th of March. Is everybody happy with those? If I don't see any hands go up, I'll assume that's the case. Okay, thank you. Can I also just remind everybody that this meeting is being live streamed. It's also recorded for when it goes out onto YouTube via the council's website. And just the normal reminders for us regulars anyway, please have your cameras off and your microphones muted. There are a lot of us in this meeting tonight, so we don't want to get into any problems with the system. Okay then, thank you. And also a reminder to turn your phones off or put them onto silent. Item number 4 are to receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary and other interests in accordance with the members' code of conduct, if they've not already been listed on the agenda. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. This is just to say that in with reference to item 4 on the agenda, I have had conversations with the applicant reference planning policy in the conservation areas.
Yeah, okay, that probably comes under item 5, but okay, thanks for that, Councillor Phillips, thank you. I don't see any others. Just a little reminder, if you could take your hands down once you've spoken as well, please. Item number 5 is declarations of contact. I think if we record Councillor Phillips underneath that, please.
Yes, Chair. There's a message in the chat as well from Councillor Wilson about one of our speakers who's unable to attend. If you just wanted to review that.
Right, I had difficulty seeing that.
It's
Right, is this the one we had notice of anyway, Victoria?
this is the one I emailed you about earlier. Wahida has a copy I emailed to her earlier. It's from Mr. White.
Yeah, okay then. Well,
one.
when we get to it, I'll ask Wahida to read it out, and if it's not the same as what Councillor Wilson has, I'll get Councillor Wilson to clarify it.
Thank you.
Right, which takes us on then to item 6, which are applications where the public have indicated a desire to speak or have submitted a written statement. If I can just sort of go through that process with people, and the planning officer will go through that particular item. Once that's happened, I will call the speakers in the order that we've got. I will confirm with Victoria that my list is the same as others. There's been a little bit of confusion today. People that are speaking are allowed 3 minutes. That's under the Constitution. So once that 3 minutes is up, I will stop you. Can whoever's speaking across me please not? Thank you. Yeah, forgotten where I was now. Yeah, after your 3 minutes and the egg timer has gone off, that will be the end of that 3 minutes. However, there's an opportunity for members to seek any points of clarification from the speaker. It is only to clarify anything that may have been said. Following on from that, the officer may have something else to come back on. If not, then I think it's Councillor Tromans. I don't know why I keep hearing you.
It's not me, Chair. I've been on
Okay.
YouTube.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, thank you. Following on from that, then the committee will debate the matter and hopefully reach a decision tonight. Okay, so the
Chair, just to make you aware, Councillor Evans has put in chat that item 5 on the agenda, he wanted something noted, that he's received an email from Councillor Clark about the Golf Drive application. He hasn't contacted Councillor Clark or indicated how he intends to vote on the item.
Okay, actually, I thank you and I thank Councillor Evans for that. I think the whole of the committee has been contacted by County Councillor Clark. I did reply to him just to acknowledge receipt of it and that the committee would be considering the matter tonight. Okay, so if you can record that all members have received that, unless they haven't read their emails today. Thank you. Right, which takes us on to item number 1, which is Golf Drive. Victoria, just before the presentation is made, can you confirm that my list of speakers is correct? Objectors, I've got Councillor Wilson, Councillor Gutteridge, Mr. White, who it might be a statement or oral, Mr. Gill, and Mr. Farmer, the applicant.
Yeah, Mr. Gill has submitted a statement as well.
Oh yes, I've got that. Yeah. Okay then. Right, Claire, I think it's over to you then.
It is, thank you, Chair. Okay, this is a hybrid application consisting of a full plan application for 621 dwellings, vehicular access from Golf Drive and Wentworth Drive, pedestrian and cycle access from Juliet Close, landscaping, open space, drainage, and all other ancillary and enabling works, and an outline application for a site of 0.8 hectares comprising a community hall and health centre. Objections have been received as detailed on the agenda and addendum, raising issues such as increased noise and pollution, increased traffic and congestion, lack of amenities, the siting of the affordable housing being too close to existing properties, loss of wildlife and impact on local services. In terms of the principle of development, the site was previously in the green belt, but was removed as part of the borough plan under policy DS7. Policy DS5 of the borough plan refers to a number of sites that have been allocated for residential development, and this application site forms part of allocation HSG9. Under that allocation, there is to be provision for approximately 621 dwellings. It is considered that the requirements of policy HSG9 can and have been accommodated on the site. Therefore, it is considered that the principle of developing this site for a mix of residential, community use, GP surgery and open space has been established through the allocation of the site in the borough plan and the relevant policies within it. In terms of affordable housing, policy H2 of the borough plan requires 25% of all new developments to be affordable on sites of 15 dwellings or more. A total of 156 affordable units are proposed, which does equate to 25% and is therefore acceptable. Of the affordable units, 23 are one bed, of which 3 are bungalows, 82 are 2 bed, of which 3 are bungalows, 46 are 3 bed and 5 are 4 bed. Housing have confirmed they have no objection to this mix. Some concerns have been raised by residents and ward members that there are not enough bungalows on the site. However, Housing have confirmed that there is a big demand for one-bedroom properties for singles and not just the elderly, and that the proposed one-bed provision on the site is exactly what's needed. To provide bungalows would detrimentally impact on what else could be provided for other singles, and they don't want additional bungalows at the expense of other property types in much higher demand. The Affordable Housing SPD 2020 recommends a 10-year split of 74% social and affordable rent to 26% intermediate housing, which is provided. The Affordable Housing SPD also states that to promote inclusive communities, affordable housing should not be identifiable from other forms of housing within the development. Affordable housing should not be located in the least desirable areas of the site, but distributed evenly amongst the market housing. The SPD also provides appropriate cluster sizes, which depends on the size of the development. For sites of more than 500 dwellings, it recommends at least 8 clusters with a maximum of 15 to 20 units in each. It is considered that this is met as 11 clusters are provided within the site, which are shown on the screen, and spread evenly throughout the site. Planning policy and housing have no objections on that basis. In terms of general market housing, policy H1 of the borough plan states that development is required to provide a mix of housing types, sizes and tenures based on the need and demand identified in the most up-to-date strategic housing market assessment, or the SMAR, as well as the characteristics of the surrounding area. The SMAR 2013 indicates there is a greatest need in the borough for 3-bed properties, followed by 2-bed, then 4-bed. The proposal will provide 2-bed properties at 21%, 3-bed properties at 50%, 4-bed properties at 28%, and 5-bed properties at 1%. Given the local context, it is considered that some divergence from the SMAR is considered acceptable. In addition, policy H1 of the borough plan states that there is a lack of executive or aspirational homes in the borough, which can impact on attracting potential business investors to the area, and such housing would be considered favourable, providing that the mix is in general ranges indicated in the SMAR. Given that the majority of the dwellings will be 2- and 3-bed, it is considered acceptable that some larger 4- and 5-bedroom properties are also proposed. In terms of visual amenity and landscape character, Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Council commissioned a landscape character assessment in 2012, which was updated in 2016 and have been used to inform the borough plan. The council also commissioned a landscape capacity study in 2017, which analysed the landscape character of potential strategic borough plan sites, including this application site. The study sets out a number of recommendations if the site was taken forward for allocation, including the development should be offset from the northern and eastern boundaries, and where feasible, public rights of way are to be incorporated within green space corridors. There should also be buffers along the northern and eastern boundaries, and also to supplement existing hedgerows with hedgerows trees. These recommendations have been carried forward into policy HSG9 and are also shown to be provided as part of this development. A landscape strategy has been submitted with the application. It is considered that the application complies with the form of development requirements as set out in policy HSG9. For example, a wooded landscape buffer is proposed along the northern boundary, so along here, which also incorporates play opportunities as well as accommodating surface water attenuation features. The boundary hedgerows are proposed to be retained and enhanced. The proposed landscaping to the northern boundary would help integrate the development with the surrounding landscape and soften the built form in views from nearby walking routes, as well as forming a strong boundary to the green belt. The buffer is also continued along the eastern boundary of the site in compliance with HSG 9. The proposals also include proposed planting of street trees, particularly along the main spine road, together with planted road vergage and private gardens. A buffer to protect the setting of the Hill farmhouse, which is up here, which is a Grade 2 listed building, is also proposed. The existing public rights of way have been retained to maintain connections across the site, again in compliance with HSG 9. The proposed built development is outward facing in relation to the proposed open space and allotments. This provides visual interest and the positive relationship between the different uses. A central spine road is proposed, which runs from east to west and connects to the accesses at Golf Drive and Wentworth Drive. It is served by footpaths and is proposed to be tree lined to create an attractive route throughout the site. Residential streets are proposed off this and include some cul-de-sacs. Several areas of publicly accessible open space are proposed, including a large central open space which is bound on the west side by the existing public right-of-way, which provides access into the countryside to the north. The dwellings are predominantly two-storey, apart from 6 bungalows. There is a mixture of terraced, semi-detached and detached properties, which provides a sufficient variety. Materials consist of brick with some render and other details such as canopies, chimneys, sill detailing and bay windows. It is considered that this adds interest to the site. Boundary treatments would consist of 1.8 metre brick walls where private gardens adjoin roads and the public realm, and close boarded timber fencing elsewhere, which is considered acceptable in terms of visual amenity. Clearly, the proposal would have an impact on the landscape character of the area, but it is not considered this would be significant or severe. The built development would partly be seen in context to the existing residential development. Views from the public footpath to the northern part of the site would be of open space with residential properties beyond. However, the site is part of an allocated site within the adopted borough plan. And while its future development in line with policy HSG 9 will inevitably have some impact on the landscape character of the area, the benefits associated with the proposed development must be taken into consideration also. Turning to residential amenity, a noise assessment has been submitted with the application. The assessment has identified traffic as the dominant source of noise in the area, but goes on to say that internal noise levels can be met. Environmental Health concur with the findings of the report. In relation to the existing properties, distance standards are met in compliance with the Sustainable Design and Construction SPD. In terms of inside the site, distance standards are generally met. There are some instances where they are not met, as outlined in the report, but it is considered there are mitigating circumstances. For example, plot 242 and 243 has a distance of 10.8 metres to the side of plot 261, that's shown there. and 14 metres would normally be required. However, at ground floor, the room is served by a window and French doors, and the French doors have views past plot 261. Plot 566 to the side of plot 568, which is here, is a distance of 10.5 metres, but the room is served by a window and French doors and is not direct and has views past. Plots 282 through to 302 are 60 metres window to window. Distance standards normally require 20 metres, but the guide also says if it's across a road, these standards can be relaxed. There is a distance of 9.5 metres from the rear of plot 194 to the side of the adjoining garage. However, the orientation of the garage has been amended, which results in the roof sloping away. The height to the eaves of the garage is just over 2.1 metres, which is just over a fence or wall that could be built under permitted development. In relation to the requirements of BE3, a statement has been provided which sets out that all of the questions in the Building for Life 12 standard have been met. A total of 35% of the dwellings as set out in policy BE3 comply with the additional building regulation standards, which means they are classed as lifetime homes, suitable for adaptation from young families to older individuals and for adaptation for temporary or permanent physical impairments or disabilities. This enables people to stay in their homes longer, giving choice for people with disabilities or physical impairments. Rainwater harvesting is also proposed in compliance with policy BE3 through the provision of water butts to each property. A passive solar design statement has also been submitted, which details how the development integrates the principles of passive solar design. These include that the road alignment runs predominantly east to west, which allows dwellings to be positioned to take advantage of solar gain, maximising the number of buildings oriented within 30 degrees of south, the use of single and two-storey dwellings to give exposure to available sunlight, and the use of traditional masonry external wall construction to allow natural convection and radiation within the masonry walls. The agent has confirmed that all of the dwellings meet the national minimum space standards as set out in the Sustainable Design and Construction SPD. Planning policy have no objection on these basis. In terms of accessibility and highway safety, access is proposed off Golf Drive and Wentworth Drive, which is in accordance with policy HSG 9. A central spine road is proposed which runs from east to west and connects to the accesses at Golf Drive and Wentworth Drive and is served by footpaths. Residential streets are proposed off this and includes some cul-de-sacs. County highways have no objections but have requested that where the spine road for the development is to connect to the existing public highways of Golf Drive and Wentworth Drive, details of the changes to the existing junction and turning head need to be submitted for agreement. This would form part of a 278 agreement. They have also requested a condition for design details to be submitted for the layout of the junction of Golf Drive, Shakespeare Drive to reprioritise the primary route, extension of a shared footway cycleway provision to the eastern boundary of Golf Drive to enable cyclists to safely rejoin the public highway, provision and connection of the shared cycle path footway between the proposed development and Juliet Close, and provision of a proposed shared footway cycleway together with the closure of the existing turning head at Wentworth Drive. This is all included under condition 9. County highways raised concerns regarding the retained access to Hill Farm and also to the paddocks and cottages to the southeastern corner of the site. As a result, the access to Hill Farm has been widened to accommodate the largest vehicles anticipated to be associated with that use. Highways are now satisfied with this. In terms of parking provision, a total of 1,485 spaces are provided, which equates to just over 2 spaces per dwelling. The minimum number of spaces for the one-bed properties is 1, and there'll be a minimum of 2 spaces for all other properties. The council does not currently have any safe parking standards, and therefore this level of provision is considered acceptable. A transport assessment has been submitted with the application. This details that the modelling that has been undertaken to assess the traffic impact of the development on the local and strategic highway network. This has included assessment of the number of junctions, including Golf Drive, Wentworth Drive, Lutterworth Road, Golf Drive, Lutterworth Road, Crowhill Road and Willowfields Road, and the junction of the A4254 with Crowhill Road, Lutterworth Road and the A47. Also assessed was trip generation, trip distribution and queuing at a number of junctions. County Highways have confirmed that with mitigation, development-related traffic impacts can be safely accommodated on the network without severe impacts. This mitigation includes the provision of a signalisation scheme at the Golf Drive Lutterworth Road junction, which includes the removal of the existing double islands. Highways England have assessed the impact of the development on the M6 Junction 3 and the A5 corridor, which includes the A5, A47, the Longshoot junction and the Dodwells roundabout junction. Their assessment has had regard to the policy consideration, and they point out that the site is allocated in the adopted borough plan, and they accept that as improvements are already in the pipeline for the Longshoot and A5 junction, they have no objection and don't consider there will be severe impacts in relation to the strategic highway network. The NPPF outlines the need for planning to promote cycling, walking and public transport and to make the fullest possible use of these. There are two public rights of way which cross the application site. Public footpath N42 runs along the track towards the north through the site from Golf Drive, and public bridleway N39 runs within the site boundary in the northwestern corner. Public footpath M41 also runs adjacent to the part of the northern site boundary. A range of schemes are proposed which would improve accessibility to and from the site via sustainable forms of transport and therefore reduce the reliance on the private car. The two primary access points on Wentworth Drive and Golf Drive will be accessible to vehicles, pedestrians and cyclists, with a secondary access point of Juliet Close being exclusively for cyclists and pedestrian use. The design proposes that these tracks will be accessible. The northwestern boundary of the site is a bridleway and national cycle path. The design proposes that these tracks will be accessible along the boundary. The public right-of-way, which starts at Golf Drive and runs through the site, will remain in place and provide access through the site. Provision is also made for a link out of the site into the northwest corner, which links then eventually onto Eastborough Way. County Highways have requested £550,000 for the provision of new cycling infrastructure to serve the site and provide connections to the existing cycle network. The site is in proximity to a number of bus stops that serve the number 4 route. This route serves the area of South East Nuneaton and into the town centre. There are bus stops on Lutterworth Road, approximately 800 metres from the site, that serve various bus routes into the Nuneaton town centre and also the University Hospital in Coventry. It is proposed to facilitate the rerouting of the number 4 bus route through the site in the future. The site has been designed to cater for this potential movement by providing a 6 metre wide road with 2 metre wide verges, 2 metre wide footpath on one side and a 3 metre wide cycle path on the other. The county infrastructure team have also requested 106 contributions of £525,000 towards the upgrade of service number 4 to operate every 30 minutes on Mondays to Saturdays. This will require an additional vehicle to operate between 7 AM and 7 PM. The developer is also required to provide a sufficient number of paired bus stops on the main arterial route through the site, ensuring all dwellings are within 400 metres walking distance to the nearest bus stop. These will be provided as part of the Section 38 works. Policy TC3 of the Borough Plan states that any new residential development should be within 1.2 kilometres walking distance of a district or local centre. Policy HSG9 of the Borough Plan states that there should be provision of a new local centre on the site, including a community hall. The site will provide a community hall, but the agent has provided justification for not providing shopping provision on the site. They point out that policy HSG9 of the Borough Plan does not specify that retail uses have to be provided as part of the local centre. The only facility that is stipulated is the community hall. They consider that retail uses would be inappropriate and unnecessary in this location, particularly as there are already existing local retail stores in the area, including 2 convenience stores and a pharmacy at the junction of Golf Drive and Lutterworth Road, which is part of the Lutterworth Road local centre. This local centre is approximately 1 kilometre away from the site, which complies with policy TC3. In addition, there is a further convenience store and pub and restaurant at the junction of Crowhill Road and Raven Way. Policy TC3 also states that new residential development should be 8 minutes motor vehicle drive time to a district centre. Attleborough District Centre is approximately 5 metres drive away, which meets this requirement. The inspector's final report on the borough plan stated that the site would be within walking and cycling distance of day-to-day services and facilities, including a good level of bus services into Nuneaton, acknowledging that there are existing local services and facilities to meet the day-to-day needs of future residents. Planning policy are satisfied with the justification provided, given the proximity of existing nearby centres. In addition to the residential development on the site, a number of other uses are also proposed in accordance with the requirements of Policy HSG 9. The outline element of the application includes land for a community building. The details of this will be covered in a future Reserved Matters application. Condition 28 has been added, requiring details of the long-term management and maintenance of this building and use to be submitted. Details regarding the management company provisions will also be included in any 106 agreement. A local community association is interested in managing the building. It is likely that Warwickshire County Council will take on the freehold, and discussions have taken place and are ongoing in relation to this. There will be a clause in the 106 agreement which states that at a certain trigger point the site would be transferred to a body to take over the freehold. The outline application also includes land for a GP surgery. Again, further details of this would be assessed under a Reserved Matters application. The proposals also include the provision of on-site allotments. Whilst this is not a requirement of Policy HSG 9, this has been requested by Parks. Due to the total absence of existing allotment sites in the surrounding area, they require the provision on site of an equipped allotment site. Allotment provision can be off-site if there is a site in the right catchment distance according to our adopted allotment strategy, where capacity can be increased. However, in this case, it cannot, so on-site provision is deemed more appropriate. Play and open space is also provided on site and will consist of a community park and local park provision in line with MBBC Parks requirements. Facilities include toddler and junior equipped play, teenage play including a mugger, a green gym, BMX track and naturalistic play within a formal grassland area. The Parks Department have been consulted and have had detailed discussion throughout the application with the applicant and agent. They subsequently have no objection. In relation to flooding and drainage, the NPPF requires that consideration is given to the potential impact of flooding on new development, whilst also ensuring that flood risk is not increased elsewhere as a result of it, and sets out a sequential risk-based approach to the location of development to steer this away from the areas at highest risk. The site is in flood zone 1 and therefore has a low level of alluvial flood risk. In terms of surface water drainage, there is some evidence that the southwest of the site becomes waterlogged. It is estimated that approximately 7 hectares of the site drains towards the southwest corner, and with no obvious outfall, it is assumed drainage is ultimately achieved through a combination of infiltration both to ground and into the public sewerage system. The proposed surface water drainage strategy makes use of existing site features, including the central watercourse and ponds, and a series of additional SUDS areas which are proposed throughout the site to manage surface water drainage. The County Flood Risk Management team have no objections subject to conditions. In terms of contamination, a ground investigation report has been submitted with the application. Environmental Health have reviewed this report and have confirmed it does not show any elevated contaminants on the site and therefore no conditions are required. In relation to air quality, an air quality impact assessment has been submitted with the application. The assessment considered the impact of existing sources of air pollution at the proposed development site and the impacts of the proposed development on the local area. It found that the potential risk of dust impacts on the development was predicted to be of a maximum of medium to high risk during the construction phase. It therefore recommends conditions covering a dust management plan and construction environmental management plan. It also found that development would have an insignificant impact on air quality, but recommends the installation of electric vehicle charging points and that all gas-fired boiler installations should be to a specified standard. Environmental Health find the conclusions of the assessment acceptable and have no objection subject to conditions. A construction environmental management is included under condition 8, and conditions 38 and 39 cover electric vehicle charging points and gas-fired boilers respectively. In terms of ecology and biodiversity, an ecological impact assessment and an arboricultural assessment have been submitted with the application. Most of the existing trees and hedgerows are proposed to be retained and significantly enhanced through the planting of new trees and hedgerows, particularly to form a landscape buffer to the north and east. All of the trees that are proposed to be removed are of low quality. The ecological impact assessment identifies that there are no statutory designated sites within 2 kilometres of the site. There are some local wildlife sites and potential wildlife sites within 2 kilometres. The assessment finds there is no significant impact on these sites, but suggests mitigation, such as a dust management plan, habitat creation and sensitive lighting. It also suggests that further ecological surveys are required to determine the presence of various species. Further surveys relating to bats, great crested newts, otters and waterfowl have been carried out together with a hedgerow regulations assessment. In relation to bats, 15 trees were identified at the site considered to provide some suitability for roosting bats. 4 trees were of low suitability, 6 trees were of moderate and 5 trees were of high suitability. Only 1 tree which provides bat roost potential is to be lost as part of the development, and all of the trees are to be retained. The report recommends various mitigations such as sensitive lighting and bat boxes, which are included as conditions. In terms of great crested newts, the site provides limited suitable habitat for them. The ditches at the site appear to support varying water levels throughout the year and varying in suitability for the species. It is also considered that the presence of great crested newts is unlikely at the adjoining site at the Nuneaton Golf Club. The otter and waterfowl survey found that they are likely to be absent from the site and survey area. Condition 15 has been added that a walkover of the site by an ecologist must take place to check for badger sets. The hedgerow regulations assessment identified that there are 2 hedgerows that meet the criteria and are classed as important in terms of ecology. The remaining 4 hedgerows that were surveyed did not meet the criteria and are therefore not classed as important but species rich. 3 sections of the hedge of high quality will be removed to facilitate the construction of access roads and the pedestrian footpath as part of the development. However, approximately 1.5 kilometres of new species rich hedgerow is to be created as part of the development, which is considered to mitigate the loss of sections of the important hedgerow. In order to comply with the NPPF and to ensure that development does not have an impact on biodiversity impact calculations have been carried out. Biodiversity is always treated in a sequential test, with avoidance being the preferred methodology, followed by mitigation first on site and then off site. The calculations that have been carried out show a net gain in biodiversity. The Parks team have no objection in relation to the impact on ecology and diversity, subject to conditions. Turning to heritage and archaeology, a heritage impact assessment has been submitted with the application. The assessment assesses possible impact of the proposed development on built heritage assets in and around the site. There are 2 built heritage assets that may be affected by the proposals, which are the Grade 2 listed farmhouse at Hill Farm and the Grade 2 listed Ashby de la Luzouche Canal Bridge number 8. Both assets are considered to be of medium to high significance. The assessment states that Hill Farmhouse will not be physically impacted and its immediate setting will remain to a certain extent unchanged, owing to existing screening along the southern boundary of its curtilage. They will be further enhanced by the planting of a landscape buffer along the northern edge of the site. It is acknowledged that the proposal would result in a significant change to the wider rural landscape setting of the heritage asset. As such, the assessment concludes that the proposal will have a moderate impact upon this heritage asset. During the preparation of the borough plan, the impact of the proposed allocation on the heritage asset was assessed. Policy HSG 9 sets out mitigation measures which consist of the provision of a landscape buffer to protect the setting of the building and soften the views to and from it. As a landscape buffer is provided, it is considered that it complies with the requirements of Policy HSG 9. The Abbey de la Zouche Canal Bridge forms one of a series of canal bridges noted to be of a well-preserved example of its type. The assessment considered its heritage value and concluded that there is no intervisibility between the listed bridge and the application site, and therefore the impact on this heritage asset was neutral. Historic England have been consulted on the application, but stated that they did not wish to make comments. An archaeological assessment has been submitted with the application and concluded there may be some remains which are moderate to high potential for prehistoric remains. A written scheme of investigation has been submitted and a programme of trial trenching has been undertaken. A report detailing the results of the fieldwork has been submitted. The trial trenching identified archaeological deposits largely concentrated within the three main areas of the proposed development site, which included a number of ditch features from the Romano-British pottery were discovered, suggesting settlement activity across this area during the Roman period. As a result of this, County Archaeology have requested that a further phase of archaeological work is required to mitigate the archaeological impact of the proposed scheme. This would include an archaeological mitigation strategy, including a written scheme of investigation, which is covered under Condition 22. In relation to planning obligations, a number of contributions have been requested as detailed on the screen for things such as education, plain open space, cycling, infrastructure, healthcare, bus provision, sports provision and police infrastructure. The applicant has agreed to these contributions. In conclusion, the site is allocated as a strategic housing site in the borough plan and will provide housing and other social and leisure facilities. The potential impacts of the proposed development in relation to the use of the land, residential amenity, visual amenity, highway safety, flood risk and drainage, contamination, ecology and heritage and archaeology have all been considered. The assessment has subsequently shown there will be no adverse impacts in some instances. However, where potential adverse impacts are identified, it will be possible to mitigate these through the use of planning obligations and conditions. The recommendation is therefore one of approval, subject to conditions and the completion of a legal agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Claire. I'll let you get your breath back. Unless they're desperate to at the moment, if county officers or I noticed Jane Grant from our housing people are here, or I'll just leave it for you to respond to any comments or questions when we get to the committee stage, unless you're desperate to say anything now. I don't see that, so I'll just carry on. The next part then takes us to our list of speakers, and the first one on the list is Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. For over 10 years as a local ward member, I've been opposing development on the Golf Drive site. And it is a regrettable day that we have finally arrived at this point where we are considering building the 621 houses on Golf Drive. I want to start from the outset and say that the developers have been extremely generous in terms of meeting with local councillors and trying to overcome our concerns. Indeed, I believe in many respects, it is a textbook example of how planners and local communities can work together in areas such as removing Juliet Close from being a main access, installing green gyms, 5-metre buffer, amending some of the road layouts within the site, the community centre works and the siting of the community centre and other facilities within the site. However, whilst I respect their efforts to work with us, as a local ward councillor, I still have fundamental objections to this development. The first of all being that whilst I understand it is within the borough plan, it doesn't overturn my innate opposition to this, because as Catherine Morton, the then head of planning, stated at the inspection, Golf Drive is only being put into the borough plan because we have, or rather Labour Council agreed to accept 4,000 overspill housing from Coventry. It isn't local need, it is Coventry's need, and not enough work was done to push back to Coventry to say that this isn't needed. The open space that we are going to lose from this is critical. It has been shown and demonstrated, especially during lockdown, that the ability to walk through this area has been of tremendous benefit to local residents in maintaining their mental and physical health during these past 12 months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whilst there are other subsidiary accesses, mainly Willowfields Road, it doesn't detract from the fact that Golf Drive will be the main entry and exit point to this new site. Even if you go down Wentworth, it still feeds back onto Golf Drive. The borough plan consultation document stated that Lutterworth Road is the most busy, the B4114 is the most busy road in the borough. And I have looked at the proposed mitigations on the highway network, and I have severe reservations about how these will work, removing the double islands and the signalisation, and effectively turning 3 out of the 4 approaches to this crossroads into 3-lane roads. I have fundamental objections to this, and I believe it will not make it easier to get to and from the other sides of the road. In fact, in some spaces, you end up with 3 attempts to get across the road with mini islands in the middle. I would urge the committee, in conclusion, Chair, to reject this application. It is not needed, and it has severe impacts on the highway network, in my view. As someone who lives here, I believe, and as someone who represents the area I live in, that this will have a detrimental impact on our community. And it is not needed. It is Coventry's need, not ours.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure whether I heard the egg timer or not then. I heard some of it, but very faintly.
I heard a chirp, Chair.
Sorry?
I think I heard a chirp, maybe.
Right, okay then. Right, are there any points of clarification from members? No. Okay then, which takes us on to Councillor Gutteridge.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Committee. I wish to speak as Ward Councillor against this proposed development, 621 houses on 77 acres of farmland. As are the many residents' protest groups. I even had a resident at lunchtime ring me from Hamlet Close, protesting about this proposed development. And while in the ward today, people saying, we don't need these houses, we don't want these houses. Why do we have to take the overspill from Coventry? I have attended the many meetings with the developer, the council planning officers and the protest groups and the consultation event. And I'd like to just read part of an email I received today. The results of a micro simulation modelling showed that the impacts of a new development at the land of Golf Drive would have severe impacts on increasing delays and queues for various sections of the network. Nevertheless, the proposed mitigation would reduce these impacts to acceptable levels. Therefore, it is necessary to provide the mitigation in order to improve this development proposal. So, also, one of the many concerns with this, with the traffic modelling, is the entrance and exit of the parade of shops on the corner of Lutterworth Road, Golf Drive. On exit, you will have to cross the traffic to turn left onto Lutterworth Road to head out towards the country, crossing 3 lanes. Also, major concern is coming out of the town and the traffic build-up from the Crow Hill Road. What happens in an emergency? Will the emergency services get there in time? It will take longer, putting lives at risk for the residents. And what about the air quality at this junction? The residents of Whitestone do not want this development, and I call upon this planning committee to reject this planning application as the road configuration is not acceptable for such a large development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any points of clarification? No. Mr. Dennis White, I don't know whether he's with us or Wahida, whether you're doing the statement.
He's not with us, Chair. I think Wahida will be reading his statement.
Okay, over to you, Wahida, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a statement from Mr. Dennis White. I'm speaking on behalf of Whitestone Residents Action Group, which was set up to represent Whitestone residents in respect of the effects of the Borough Plan. This development is the proposal which has concerned residents the most due to the fact that it was green belt land and provided important access to the green countryside in this area. It has become even more important during the pandemic, being used by people from all over the town. However, we are now concerned about mitigating the effects of this development on local residents. The main residential properties affected are those which back onto the site in Shakespeare Drive, Hamlet Close and Oberon Close. Many have very small or short gardens, thereby making privacy an important issue. Taylor Wimpey originally proposed to erect bungalows along this border, which would have helped to mitigate the effect. They were shown in the plans at public meeting. We are therefore very disappointed that the council would not accept this. The baby boomer generation was always being told to downsize to assist the younger generation and need these type of properties to do this. I would ask that you reconsider this once again. The application does include a 5-meter buffer zone from the rear of the properties to help offset the negative effects. However, can you ensure that this is installed when those houses are built and not at the end of the development, which could take a few years? Also, we need clarification on what will be planted and how it is maintained securely in the future. Can you please ensure that this is done? It is stated that the changes to the Shakespeare Drive and Gulf Drive junction are necessary before commencement on this site. Can I ask that residents have the opportunity to comment on these changes before approval because of their long-term experience of the problems here? Likewise, the parking arrangements for site workers and visitors needs to ensure that random parking in the nearby streets is avoided. Shakespeare Drive is a narrow road and used by buses. The biggest problem for the wider Whitestone area is the double mini roundabout at the Whitestone junction. Although the proposed changes by the County Council will make it safer for those turning right out of Gulf Drive, it will not solve the bigger problem of traffic quantity. Prior to the pandemic, the queues often stretched back to the railway bridge towards the town, back to the corner house pub in Bulkington Lane and back to the town boundary coming from Bramcote. This can only but worsen this with this development and others at Chipsy Lane, Eastborough Way and even the Bulkington development. The rat runs around Fairway, Meadowside, Chetwynd Drive, Wentworth Drive and Crow Hill Road will increase further to the detriment of those residents. The fact that the Lutterworth Road corridor was in need of a solution was recognised in the Borough Plan and the inspector at the hearing. He stated that the problem should be solved before further development takes place.
Are you nearly there, Wahida?
Yeah, Chair, there's a very small paragraph left if you permit me to finish.
Okay.
Should this not be done before the approval of this application? We note the operation hours for HEVs is excluded between 4:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. Can we ask that they do not access the site after 6 p.m, also because of the noise and dust associated with their operation during the time people are setting down after the day's work? The existing public footpath across to Attleborough Fields needs to be kept accessible. Can we ensure this is included in any conditions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Right, while you're there, Wahida, do you have the written statement from Mr. Gill as well?
I do, Chair.
Okay, if you want to go through that with us, please.
Thank you. Statement from Mr. Gill. My main points of concern, in no particular order, are as follows. No 5 metre plus boundary buffer zone as was initially proposed or considered behind Hamlet Close to mitigate somewhat privacy and security issues. Communal play areas located directly behind Hamlet Close, these should be located well within new development away from the existing home boundaries to mitigate security, privacy, noise and antisocial behaviour issues. Initially, proposals were to build bungalows behind Hamlet Close with boundary and securely fencing with wildlife area buffer zone between the no human access, addressing security and privacy issues. Social housing backlog onto rear of Hamlet Close. Again, these should be located well within the new housing stock development and not backing onto existing residents. Increased vehicular traffic problems in an already overstretched traffic choke point, especially Golf Drive, Lutterworth Road, Golf Drive, Wentworth Drive, and Golf Drive, Shakespeare Drive, and Crow Hill Road, Lutterworth Road junctions, to name a few, adding to existing problems and increasing danger to life via road traffic accidents, collisions with pedestrians and motorists, creating shortcuts, rat runs, especially during peak times, not to mention air quality. Proposed number of allotments, again backing onto Hamlet Close near boundaries, adding to privacy and security issues. Property values, especially those bordering the proposed development, will suffer and be affected negatively, making them less attractive to prospective buyers. This can be easily proven. Will we be fully compensated? I must also emphasise that a majority of Hamlet Close properties, bathroom and bedroom windows are directly rear-facing the proposed new development. Whilst I understand the need to develop and build homes, we as existing residents should not be subjected to such drastic proposals and changes as outlined above right on our doorstep or back step, whichever way you wish to look at it. I have lived here for almost 25 years, and not only are we losing what we thought were views over protected green belt, which was one of the reasons many of us chose to buy and live here in the first place, the proposal also does not take into account residents' genuine concerns and feelings on these matters. There have been an increasing number of crimes, antisocial behaviour and dog fouling issues, amongst other matters, that the police and council cannot control already. Adding 621 new homes is only going to create more misery for existing residents, not to mention burdening already overstretched resources, such as the police and other essential services. Chair, there's 2 lines left.
Yes, please, yeah, finish off, please, Wahida.
New customers of Taylor Wimpey will have a choice of whether or not to buy based on proposed development and all it entails. We do not. That's the end of the statement, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I believe it's our last speaker from the applicant, Mr. Darren Farmer.
Yes, Chair, that's me. Thank you. I'll crack on. Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Darren Farmer. I'm Technical Director for the Midlands region of Taylor Wimpey, and I've been involved with this development for the last 2 years or so. From the outset, given the size and sensitivity of the development, we have sought to obtain the views, aspirations and requirements of the local councillors, residents through the Whitestone Action Group, the local MP Marcus Jones and the Whitestone Community Association, which we could look to incorporate where possible within the evolving scheme. I should also point out that from day one, we've been honest and upfront with all of the consultees to advise directly as to whether we could or could not incorporate requests into the development proposals. The proposal presented to you for consideration provides the following, which Claire has already outlined, but again, to reiterate, key points to consider are 621 homes of various sizes ranging from 1 to 5 bedrooms. 156 of these homes will be for affordable need, including for a small number of bungalows positioned adjacent to the southern boundary and existing properties on Shakespeare Drive as promised. Affordable dwellings are clustered and dotted throughout the site, and as requested, other than the aforementioned bungalows, are situated away from the existing residential boundaries to the west and south. 5 metre landscape buffer margin along the whole of the southern and western existing residential boundaries. Provision within the proposed highway to accommodate an extension to the existing bus route through the development. Access for cars, bicycles and pedestrians from 2 points, Golf Drive and Wentworth Drive, with access from Juliet Close restricted to pedestrians and cycles only, as requested. The majority of existing trees and hedgerows in the scheme are also to be retained. 33.5% of the total area of the scheme is to be public open space and landscaping, accessible to all, which it is currently not, including provision for extensive new equipped play areas catering for all age groups. 2,733 linear metres of new footpath cycleways separate to those adjoining highways to provide connections within the development to the existing community and beyond to the existing footpath network and open countryside. Retention of the existing public footpath running through the site from south to north on its existing alignment. Provision for 20 new allotment plots. Retain land to be serviced and handed over for the provision of a community centre and GP facility. Separate financial contributions from the developer totaling just under 6 million to mitigate the impacts of the development, including, as already stated, the upgrading of the junction to Lutterworth Road and Golf Drive. A famous person once said that you can please some of the people all of the time and all of the people some of the time, but you can never please all of the people all of the time. Taking the aforementioned statement as an axiom, we believe that we have approached the creation of this development in an open, honest and transparent way with all stakeholders, which has produced a scheme which delivers on our core sustainability and placemaking principles and incorporates insofar as it can those requirements of the local stakeholders. The scheme also accords with all relevant local and national plan policies, and as such, as you would expect, we wholly support the recommendation for approval from your planning officers. Thank you for your time, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Are there any points of clarification? No? OK, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
In which case, to enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation which is printed on the agenda, which is to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement and the conditions printed. Is that seconded?
I'll second that, Chair. Councillor Neil Phillips.
OK, thank you. Any member? Councillor Sargent.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Councillor Sargent, you're muted.
Switch myself off. My concerns are the access road. So that was actually, I think, mentioned in the presentation about the widths of Golf Drive. I was down there a couple of days ago having a look, and Wentworth Drive, and I think I prefer before sort of saying, you know, that you know, a bit more information on that, and I think the sort of planned improvements, if you want to call them improvements, to Lutterworth Road and Golf Drive, I don't think will make a big difference. I think, you know, there's still going to be a lot of traffic there. The other concern I have is that further afield with the Gypsy Lane, that's already in the residents' opinion struggling with the amount of traffic going down there. I get regular complaints about Marston Lane, Donnythorne Avenue, Lutterworth Road. It's noticeable now since we're coming out a little bit of lockdown that the traffic's increasing back to what it was before. It queues back up to the railway bridge. The traffic queues cause problems with the junction of Leyland Road. Crow Hill Road, if you come up Crow Hill Road to turn right onto Lutterworth Road, is a big problem. So yeah, all I can see really is a lot of problems with increased traffic, and what I think I prefer to see is some kind of different access, taking the traffic away from already busy roads. But so I won't be voting for this approval of this application tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for no camera. I do have real issues with sound quality when it's on.
Okay.
In terms of the comments from MBBC planning policy, refuse and Warwickshire Police, can I ask what they were to the officers?
Claire?
Yes, Chair, just bear with me. It was planning policy, refuse and the police.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, planning policy, I sort of mentioned in my report that the comments really covered things that the requirements of policy BE3, like lifetime homes, space standards, the affordable housing distribution, that those were the comments that they made. Refuse, bear with me, I will find their comments. The refuse comments were general comments in relation to the layout, the amendments that had occurred throughout the processing and assessment of the application. Basically confirming that they addressed some original concerns regarding collection points that they had, and those comments have now been addressed. The police comments were in relation to ensuring that development is built in terms of secured by design standards. Making sure the buffer zones to the rear of these properties on Shakespeare Drive are secure and maintained, and they'll be lockable at either end, and also maintained by a management company.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tromans.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank officers for the conditions and subconditions that they've placed in under point 7 and point 8. Things like details to prevent mud and debris getting on the highways, wheel washes, all of that stuff. Restrictions on noise, vibration management plan, dust management plan, very important. And the fact that these details will be adhered to and monitored throughout construction. Very, very welcome. Just the kind of standard conditions that myself and some of my colleagues have been pressing for years. Just such a shame that the majority on the committee haven't always been supportive of those, but I'm glad that they're in there now as standard conditions. Let me turn to the application substance itself. It is not needed or wanted, as we have heard from the local councillors and the residents. As we heard earlier, the head of planning at the council admitted that this was put in at the last minute to meet the agreement that the borough had come to with Coventry to take their overspill. The assumptions underpinning Coventry's requirements actually now look extremely doubtful, but we haven't re-examined that. Despite the promises of the controlling group, there's been no headway of any real substance made on the borough plan review, which would have been an excellent opportunity to examine whether this should still be left in.
Councillor Travers, could you keep your comments to the planning application and not the policy? The planning application in front of us, we don't need all your other stuff.
I will be having that time back that you've just interrupted me. You always interrupt me, Chair. So this is perfectly...
What you need to do is have some respect for the chair. I'm pointing out to you, we are dealing with the planning application in front of us.
And this planning application, the reason it is being recommended is because apparently it's in the borough plan to build on that area, but that area was only required at the last minute because of assumptions and an agreement made by the controlling group on the council.
Councillor Troman,
that's a matter of record and fact, Chair.
If you want to have an argument, have the argument at full council. We're here to make a decision that residents need to know. Thank you.
The final point I would make is in relation to the highways, and that's an absolute showstopper. Both the councillors that have spoken, Guthrie and Councillor Wilson, have lived in the area for decades. They've been councillors for a long period, on planning for many years. They would be, by any stretch of the imagination, local experts. And they are saying that whatever the micro simulations and modelling say, in practice, it is not going to mitigate the highways impact. And indeed, highways have said the same thing. Councillor Jeff Clark has written in to all of us today and highlighted in yellow highlighter the fact that, you know, with the best will in the world, even if these micro simulations do appear to lessen the impact to a barely acceptable level, that would be dependent on further details of the design of the mitigation being fully reviewed and approved before we approve this housing application. So this is premature. We shouldn't even be here because they should have fully reviewed and worked out and understood the mitigation for the highways that's been put forward. So I don't think there's a justification to even hear this tonight, and we certainly shouldn't be approving it. And I would hope that this application wouldn't go ahead in any case, but it certainly shouldn't go ahead right now because of the highways issues. Thank you.
Councillor Tandy.
Thank you, Chair. I do have some problems with this application, Chair, in the sense of, yet again, we have in front of us an application which talks about no objections from Warwickshire County Council. Now, I'm assuming that Councillor Clark, Jeff Clark, in his position as the Cabinet Member for Planning in Warwickshire, has spoken to county officers about it. What bothers me about it is that the Highway Authority have said they have no objection, but then say, but if the mitigation issues are put into place, then they will be happy with it. Well, either they're happy with it now, or I just find it very, very, very difficult to understand why yet again there is no objection, and yet they're not happy with some of the junctions and some of the proposals. I've read with interest the letter that Councillor Clark have sent, and it's not known for me to agree with anything that Councillor Clark on most occasions. But I do agree. I don't want to vote against this application because I think it's too confusing on the Highway Authority stuff. But at the same time, I can't support it for the very same reasons. But I do agree with the point that he has made, where in the latter part of his letter, that we shouldn't be dealing with this application at this stage until we are well aware of exactly what is going to happen. I would prefer to see the application deferred until we have definitive information from the County Council Chair. I really would prefer this to be deferred, Chair, because I really do think that there are far too many ifs and buts and maybes, and are they objecting because of the junctions, or are they still saying no objection? I do have a real problem in relation to which way to go, and if it is just for or against, Chair, I may have to find myself abstaining, because I would prefer that it was deferred until we have correct information to make a formal decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. What I would say on that is maybe I've read the report in a different way to yourself, in as much as the report is quite clear. The county council highways did have some concerns, but the mitigations overcome those concerns. I will bring Dave Pilcher in a moment, but that's the way I understand it, and I can see Claire's got her hand up as well. So it's all right. I suppose it's difficult for me to see some of the people that are indicating. Dave, do you want to come in at this point?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can clear a lot of this up. The comments that Councillor Clark circulated today were as a result of a chain of conversations he had with Transport Planning over the past few days. The comments that he's quoting were actually the initial response back to Curtins, who are the transport consultants acting on behalf of Taylor Wimpey, when the first micro simulation run was carried out, which identified the impacts were severe at the Golf Drive Lutterworth Road junction. Subsequently, they've provided us with details of a signal control scheme, which has been further assessed. So things have moved on since those comments were made, and I don't think it's been made clear that those were comments from sort of late last year that Taylor Wimpey have subsequently addressed. We've assessed the signal controlled layout to make sure that it does work. We've rerun the modelling with that signal controlled junction in place, which has identified that it does mitigate the traffic impact from this development. And we've done a further road safety audit of that scheme to see if it's safe, which it is. Now, obviously, there will be some detailed design changes as part of the technical approval process under Section 278 of Highways Act, which there always is. But I can assure members that we have assessed that junction with the mitigation, and it does work. So I hope that's put members' minds at rest.
Thank you. That's useful. And Claire, was that kind of the point? You did have your hand up, but it's gone down again. Are you happy to leave whatever you were?
Yes, Chair. David's pretty much covered what I was going to say.
Okay, then. Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've listened to everything that everybody's been saying, especially about the houses, we don't need them and all the rest of it. I'd just like to go over a few facts, really. On the council's waiting list, we've got 1,769 people. And once you go around the housing estates that are being built at the moment, you will see that they're full probably before they're actually built. Plots are bought. So somebody's buying the houses, and we certainly need them. We certainly need these affordable housing and social housing. Just going over the bungalow situation and things like that. 20% of the singles that we have in the borough are over 60s. I don't really agree with the SHMAR figures, especially being as it's coming from 2013, because the properties that we need in the borough are mainly one beds. And following the pandemic, it'd be one beds with gardens. So I think the SHMAR figures need to be looked at again. Also looked at some of the stuff on the crime prevention, and it says there that a number of private roads, especially on the outside of the development, again, these will be unadopted roads, and because they'll be unadopted and for reasons of bats and things like that, they won't have any lighting on them. So that just needs to be taken into account, that again, we're going to end up with lots of unadopted roads. And I'm just not happy with that sort of thing. And we've only got two roads leading into an estate with 621 properties on it. So again, that concerns me again. And but then looking at the things that's been talked about planning secured by design, I'm happy with that. I'd be happier if I knew that the other things that was asked for would be included, like bollards and things like that, west to stop motorbikes riding around here. All in all, it is a big plan going through, but the objections against it as in from highways and that, I think have been covered by the developers. So as long as the developers stick to what they say they're going to, we have to deal with what's in front of us tonight. And what's in front of us tonight is this development, and I'm quite happy with it. But I do wish SMAR was updated, because what was read out tonight of what we need in this borough is a long way off what we do need in this borough. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member wish to speak that hasn't already done so? No, in which case I'll kind of wind this up now, but would like to say it is clearly, although it's been stated it came late to the local plan, whether it did or not, it is in the local plan. As the county highways objected, no, they had concerns, and they say that the mitigation is in place, that they will resolve that. Mention was made of County Councillor Clark, who I believe is the portfolio holder for transport and highways, and particular a bit that was highlighted in yellow in the letter to us. Well, I think it's a shame that all of it wasn't highlighted. It's all right to pick a little bit out, but the rest of it didn't really reflect that one little part. And I sometimes wonder what the county councillors for the areas have been doing in regards to convincing their county officers that, you know, this is such a bad thing, that all these highway problems are going to be so massive. And, you know, I just don't see that there. The professional advice that we're getting is that the highways matter will be mitigated enough. So in which case it has been moved and seconded, the recommendation, which is to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement and the conditions printed. Wahida, could I ask you please to go through the voting list, please?
Certainly, Chair. If you could indicate for or against the motion as proposed. Councillor Grant.
Against.
Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Pandaher.
Against.
Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Rudkin.
For.
Councillor Sargent.
Against.
Councillor Shepherd.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Tandy.
Abstain.
Councillor Tromans.
Against.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Councillor Evans.
I'm against.
Thank you.
Okay, Wahida, I make that 6 for, 6 against with 1 abstention. Do you agree with that?
I agree, Chair.
In which case my casting vote is in favour of the recommendation.
That's carried.
That's
Chair.
carried. Thank you. If we can move on to item number 2, please, which is School Lane, Nuneaton.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for residential development on a former pet cemetery site consisting of 4 3-bed houses and 1 4-bed dormer bungalow, garages and associated parking. The site lies along School Lane on the northwestern edge of Galley Common. It has been reported to committee at the request of Councillor Gizane. Some objections have been received as detailed on the agenda, raising issues such as increased traffic and parking on School Lane, increased noise and disturbance, and concerns with how refuse collections will be done. In terms of the principle of development, the site is just outside the settlement boundary, but given it is within proximity to other residential dwellings and there has been recent permissions adjacent to the application site, it is considered that the site is an appropriate and sustainable site for residential development. In relation to residential amenity, the property most likely to be affected is number 4, School Lane. Plot 5 of the original submitted layout was too close to this property as distance standards were not met. However, the number of plots has been now reduced to 5 and a new house type in this corner here, plot 6, is now in place in the southwest corner of the site. This new plot meets all the recommended separation distances set out in the Sustainable Design and Construction SPD. Additionally, the site level is considerably lower in comparison with number 4, which will further reduce the impact on that property. In relation to inside the site, distance standards are also met. In terms of visual amenity, whilst development represents development in depth, somewhat out of character with nearby dwellings, it would only be partially visible from public views and not detract from the existing street scene. It is considered it is large enough to create its own character. Furthermore, the layout reflects neighbouring properties by presenting frontages to the road and approaches for both vehicular and pedestrian traffic. The proposed house types are considered appropriate and incorporate some interesting features, such as segmental brick arches above the windows and stone sills below. The use of various gables also add interest. With regards to materials, the elevations will be in facing brickwork and the roof tiles will be concrete interlocking. However, to ensure the development is of a high standard, condition 5 and 6 have been added for details of the materials and boundary treatments to be submitted. In relation to ecology, whilst the site is not designated as a site of any ecological significance, a preliminary ecological assessment has been submitted with the application on account that the majority of the site is greenfield and bordered by mature hedgerows and trees. The assessment states that the site has some low value for bat foraging and commuting, although there are no trees on site with bat roost potential. The presence of great crested newts and reptiles is considered highly unlikely. The assessment points out that the majority of the site is of low ecological value and no further surveys are required. Conditions have been added for an ecological construction management plan to be submitted, together with details of lighting and hedgehog-friendly fencing. In terms of highway safety, access to the site will be off School Lane between numbers 3A and 4A. The form and layout of the vehicular access and driveway leading to the proposed units has been amended to address concerns that highways had in respect of pedestrian movements associated with the development leading from School Lane into the existing vehicular access, and to ensure that the proposed driveway provided a low-speed environment. This includes the provision of a shared surface footway and chicane features. Refuse have also confirmed that the area is serviced by a smaller refuse vehicle, which has enabled the site to be serviced internally, removing the need for bin collection points. County Highways subsequently have no objections subject to conditions. In terms of contamination, a contaminated land assessment has been submitted with the application. The assessment does not identify any elevated contaminants, but does discuss a possible risk from the remains of pets buried at the site. However, it advises that as the remains should be buried at 0.8 metres below ground level, it should not pose a risk under normal circumstances. Environmental Health have no objections, subject to condition, which is condition 9 on the agenda. The recommendation is therefore approval, subject to conditions as detailed on the agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Can we just note that I think probably all of the committee received some slides, photographs and things from Mr. Parr. I'm not sure whether they were, I can't remember now, whether they were forwarded on from planning or came from Mr. Parr.
I forwarded them out this afternoon, Councillor Hancock. There was 2 versions, an updated version as well.
Yeah, that's right. Well, certainly we've seen them. Okay, then, thank you. In which case we move on to the speakers, and the first speaker we've got is Mr. Parr.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Jonathan Parr. I live at number 3 A School Lane. I'm employed as the Group Safety Director for BT, and in my role, I'm responsible for the safety of over 100,000 employees and 40,000 commercial fleet vehicles. I'm the chair of the BT Group Road Risk Forum and consider myself to be an expert in road safety. I have a bachelor's degree, postgrad diploma, and a master's in health and safety with over 20 years' experience. The proposed plans that have been presented are incomplete. The planning delivery team have failed to commission the necessary activities to adequately assess the risks posed by this development, which means that if the application is approved today, it will result in significant and mitigated and acceptable safety risks. The road safety audit was conducted remotely by a consultant sat behind a desk with no physical on-site audit. The report highlights a caveat that if the findings are based upon and indeed limited to the basic plans drawings provided by the applicant, which means the audit is fundamentally flawed. As a result, critically important safety considerations have been neglected. So for slide 2, the plans failed to make any reference to the actual telegraph pole and bushes, trees that position to the left of the access road. In addition to the proposed new lamp column, these cause obstructions which impede the views of drivers emerging from the access road to the left and to the right, especially if reversing. Slide 3 relates to the 2 bollards on the access road. The plan calculations are incorrect, meaning in reality the width of the pedestrian pathway or vehicle access will be reduced. This will cause major access issues for larger vehicles such as fire engines. Slide 4. This illustrates it is not possible for 2 vehicles to pass on the access road, even without the 3 sets of planned barriers. This will cause vehicles to undertake significant reversing operations, affecting up to 18 cars using this road on a regular basis daily. The plans only illustrate enough room for 1 vehicle to use with no designated crossing points, as I've demonstrated with the photographs included on the slide. This will cause vehicles to have to reverse onto the main road, having to contend with restricted views, cars driving past at speed, horses, dog walkers and cyclists. This is the root cause of one of the most significant risk of these plans. Slide 5, Mr. Burrows from the planning delivery team has stated that the team's decision is based on the understanding that the access road is more than wide enough to accommodate 2 vehicle movement. This is incorrect. In my view, this is a serious oversight in the decision-making process, in addition to not commissioning an on-site road safety audit and indeed risk assessment. Slide 6 relates to issues created by 5 clear blind spots for cars pulling out of drives and garages onto the access road, creating further risks of collisions. Slide 7, the pedestrian pathway at the top of the driveway is to be routed around the corner without any protection, no curb or physical barrier, exposing pedestrians and cyclists to be vulnerable from vehicles turning into the road. Slide 8. Chair, would you mind?
Yeah, I've been a bit flexible up till now, so I'll let you continue. As long as it's
thank you very much.
There's not too much more, is there?
No, it isn't. Just a couple of words. So slide 8, the road safety audit has failed to consider the traffic on School Lane. Very busy at school times. Not enough room for vehicles to pass each other, causing again further significant reversing operations. Slide 9, the ecology report is the findings incorrect. There is actually a breeding pond within 500 metres of the proposed development, the home of great crested newts. And then finally, to conclude, so in the distinct absence of a physical on-site road safety audit and no assessment of the volume and nature of school lane traffic, then it is impossible for the committee to make an effective judgment as to the level of risks posed by the application. If an appropriate audit and risk assessment would have been undertaken, I would have expected it to identify the same significant concerns as I've just laid out. In my professional opinion, the plans are flawed and fundamentally unsafe. Their permission should not be granted on these grounds. Thank you all very much for your time and attention.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parr. Does any member have any points of clarification? No? Okay, in which case, Mr. Taylor. Oh, sorry, hang on. Councillor Evans, did you have a point of clarification to Mr. Parr?
Yes, I did, Chair. I do apologise for coming in slightly late. Yes, Mr. Parr, you said something about great crested newts, and I've gone through the PowerPoint that you sent to us earlier, and obviously I can see that there is a breeding pond there. Have you got any evidence at all to suggest that there are great crested newts?
Well, indeed I have. It's from basically personal experience. I have an 8-year-old boy. For a school project, we went there several months ago to capture some tadpoles. Lo and behold, we captured a couple of great crested newts. Right. I know they're protected. I put them straight back in unharmed, and I've not attempted to catch them in the meantime.
Don't worry, I'm not going to report you to DEFRA.
No, please don't. Don't let the local authority know.
Okay, thank you. Right, we were on to Mr. Taylor. Apologies for that, Mr. Taylor. The clock will start when you do.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me. Can I just clear up this matter of the road safety audit? It wasn't done remotely. It was carried out by 2 extremely qualified road safety auditors who did visit the site. This is part of the requirements of carrying out a road safety audit. The road safety audit was reviewed by the County Council's road safety team, and all the matters that were raised in the road safety audit have been taken on board and have been dealt with. Chair, for such a small development, it has taken a considerable amount of time for both me and for the county officers to reach a satisfactory arrangement. It has been done very carefully, and it's something that I'm quite proud of, that we've developed a safe and satisfactory solution. Can I just deal with the school traffic? That was part of the safety audit. Safety audit only reports on things that are a problem or of concern. The school was not raised as a concern. I have today spoken to the road safety team at Warwickshire County Council that deal with schools. They have launched their Safer School programme. It's a brand new scheme based on awards, and it's intended to deliver sustainable, active, focused environment and road safety solutions. The school, the primary school in question, is not on their list of problems, but they have assured me that in September, when hopefully all schools will be back, that the headmaster will be contacted, and they'll offer one-to-one advice with the headmaster, head teacher, on ways to control parent parking and to ensure that any parking that is unsafe is dealt with. Parking standards have been met. There are no current published parking standards for the borough, but there are at least 2 parking spaces per dwelling. Mr. Parr is not correct to say that there'll be 18 cars using the site daily. There's 5 houses, there's 10 garages. The total traffic generation in my professional experience is that there'll be no more than 10 cars a day using this access. The school opening times are from 20 to 9 when parents start to arrive. Most people have left for work by 8 o'clock, so there will not be a conflict between people leaving this development and parents arriving at the school. As I say, the important thing to stress is that the road safety audit has been carried out properly and to standards, and the audit team leader is a Euro engineer, member of the Chartered Institute of Engineers, member of the Road Safety Association, and an MBA.
Thank you. Are you done, Mr. Taylor?
No, I'm finished. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any points of clarification? No, in which case, to enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation, which is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions printed? Is that seconded?
Seconded, Chair, Councillor Lloyd.
Okay, thank you. And just before I bring members in, could I do want to sort of clarify this point about the audit of the highways and whether it's a desktop or not. Could either Claire or somebody from the County Highways just respond to that, please? Just before you do, Mr. Parr, I'm not allowed to bring you back in. I'm sorry about that, but it's the Constitution doesn't allow it. Right, can one of the officers, either from the county or Claire, respond to the issue about the audit of the highways?
I think Tony wants to speak.
Yeah, it's all right. My thing is, right, Tony, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. The audit has been carried out in accordance with the national guidance, in accordance with the DMRB, and it's, I believe it's CG 119. So the audit process has followed that procedure, and our officers are trained as well and properly qualified. So,
okay, that's the. I sought the advice. Thank you. Claire, anything to come back on just before I bring members in? No?
I don't think so at this stage, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, then. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. It's over to any member if they wish to make any comment. Councillor Evans. Why can't I see thee?
Can you not see me?
I can
see you.
I can see you, yes. Councillor Evans.
It's a horrible sight, isn't it?
I can't say it's my choice, but there you go.
Yes, no, I've just got a very simple question to one of the officers, if I may, at this stage. Has an ecology assessment been conducted as part of this application? Yeah, that's my question, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I believe it's in the report, but Claire?
Yes, it's in the report, Chair, but yeah, an ecological appraisal has been carried out, and at the time of the report there was no evidence of great crested newts or reptiles on the site. I would just point out, though, that condition 3 does require the submission of an ecological construction management plan, and in that they have to carry out pre-construction checks, make sure there's any safeguarding to be employed in terms of if they do come across reptiles such as great crested newts. Also, separate to the planning and the planning application, if great crested newts are found to be on the site, they would have to go down a separate route in terms of potential licensing from Natural England, which is a separate thing to the planning application.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I am concerned about this development, especially with the increased traffic in Galley Common. There's a number of developments going on up there at the moment, and the developments that are going on are dragging lots of mud, dirt onto the road and causing lots of potholes. I would if this was to go ahead, I know it's only a small development, but if it was to go ahead, I would like there to be something in place in a condition where there was somebody washing the wheels of any traffic leaving the site. Like I say, I am concerned about the traffic in Galley Common, especially the speed that some go, but that's nothing to do with this planning development, this planning application. But I'd just like to raise my concerns about the increased traffic throughout the village. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I think I'll ask Claire to confirm it, but I believe condition number 13A, there's a condition about mud and debris on the highway. Claire, can you just let me know if I'm right? Or
That's correct, Chair. That's covered. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. If I can ask County Highways a question, if that's possible, yep. Chair. Given the school being in the vicinity and school traffic, etc., did they consider when they were doing the audit of the area doing a 20-mile-an-hour limit outside that school area?
Yeah. Good question. Thank you. Is Tony? Thanks.
Yes, I believe this office hasn't looked at that. Whether safety has been asked to consider that, I don't know. But there's lots of criteria for 20, and I'm not sure on the policies for that. So I can't properly answer that, but we didn't consider a 20. And I think based on the speeds recorded or known speeds around there, I'm not sure if we could get a 20 in, because vehicle speeds are generally around 30 miles an hour.
Okay. My view on that is I think that can be something that's requested anyway. I actually think there's some really good examples of 20 mile an hour places, particularly around Coventry. In fact, I think they're aiming to make the whole city 20 mile an hour at some point, but certainly around schools. I think it's worth it, but clearly it's not there at the moment, or we can't confirm it, Councillor Lloyd. Did you want to come back for somebody else?
Yeah, it's a question to our planning officers, because I think it's a very serious, thing, coming down from 30 or 40 or whatever it is down to 20 mile an hour outside schools. Now we've been let out again and driving around Coventry. Most of the schools in Coventry that I've seen, certainly the primary schools that I've passed, have got 20 mile an hour limits outside them. Is it? I mean, I heard what the officer said about the 30 to the 20 mile an hour, but it doesn't seem to be a problem in other authorities. So the question I want to ask our planning officers, is it possible that we can put, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it, put a condition on for 20 mile an hour outside those schools? Or if we can't do that, can we at least write the county council highways, or whoever it is, highway safety, to ask them to consider putting a 20 mile an hour limit, speed restriction outside this school?
Yeah, thank you. Claire.
For that, yeah. Unfortunately, it would be outside the remit of this planning application. As you suggested, we can write to county highways requesting that, but I don't think we can. It's something we can control as part of this particular application.
Thanks, Claire. So, regardless of the outcome of this, is it fair to say we could put a note on it to ask the county to consider whether it's possible to implement a 20 mile an hour scheme?
Yes, we can certainly contact the county to do that. Yeah, to put that forward.
Okay, thank you. Because I mean, I do recognise that we probably can't do it at this point. I'll be absolutely honest with you. I want to, but I recognise that we probably can't at this point. But thank you, Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to probe a little bit more on highways. Highways is always a problem for us, but they don't always agree with local opinions on things. It's a point Mr. Parr made, and he's made it in the chat as well, I see, about this audit being done remotely. I'm not sure if that's a standard practice to do these audits remotely or not, or if it's an issue for highways. But I wonder if Tony can just clarify. Mr. Parr said in section 1.6 of the audit states that the audit was done remotely because there was no site visit. Tony said the opposite. He said there would have been a site visit. I wonder if he can clarify which it was. Okay. And also just clarify, what is standard practice? Should there have been a site visit if there wasn't?
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. Tony?
Hello. Yes, it was Mr. Taylor who said a site visit was carried out. I did not.
Oh, sorry, Tony.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
as far as WCC are concerned, we followed our process in accordance with CG 119.
Can you tell us what that is then? We don't.
I'm not an audit. I'm not a safety auditor, but our auditors are part of a professional body, so they have to abide by the rules as well. So once the audit has been submitted by the applicant, our audit team have a look at it. One officer has a look at it properly, and then another officer reviews their comments, and then the audit is submitted to us for us to come back to the applicant or in the planning authority with any problems or if they support it.
Okay, just so that I'm clear on it then, the applicant would have had to employ their independent audit of the highway.
Correct.
Yeah? And that is where Mr. Taylor was saying they did visit. You know, it's
That's
not
what Mr. Taylor said in his statement to you.
Yeah, and in that case, members will have to take a balanced view on the conflicting statements that were made. But then the county relate what they eventually come up with based on the independent highway audit. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I, Chair? Can I just come back and a little bit more clarification? Mr. Taylor said that they'd done a site visit, but apparently at section 1.6 of the audit, it says he didn't. And that still hasn't been clarified whether he did or didn't. He stated two different things. Is there any way of checking that audit?
Well, all I can say is different things have been said. We've had the professional advice from the county highways people. It'll be for members where they want to go with that. As a layperson that's got to base my decision making on the advice I'm given, that's what I'll have to do. Are you done, Councillor Smith? Just
yes,
for that.
thank you.
Councillor Lloyd. Oh,
Chair, no, I'm fine.
All right, okay. Is there any other member wish to speak that hasn't already done so? Okay, apologies if I'm a little bit slow with this, but certainly my chat thing isn't working properly, which done that. So, okay then. It's been moved and seconded that we grant planning permission subject to the conditions printed. Wahida, could I ask you to go through the roll call again as such?
Certainly, Chair.
Thank you.
If you could indicate for, against or abstain when voting. Councillor Gran.
I wonder if he's left the meeting. He said he might have to leave early. Can we move on and then we'll go back to him at the end?
It looks like he's left the meeting, Chair.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but we'll try again after we've called these other names out.
Okay. Councillor Hancox.
4.
Councillor Lloyd.
4, reluctantly.
Councillor Pandaher.
4.
Councillor Phillips.
Abstain.
Councillor Rudkin.
4.
Councillor Sargent.
Against.
Councillor Shepherd.
Abstain.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Tandy. Councillor Tandy, I don't think we got you.
Sorry, 4. I thought I'd done it right.
Thank you. Councillor Troman.
Against.
Councillor Watkins.
Against.
Councillor Evans.
Just wait for the camera to come up. I'm against. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we just try Councillor Grant? I think he has left the meeting, but just try his name again, please.
Councillor Grant. I think he's gone, Chair.
In which case, could you confirm I make it 5-4, 5 against with 2 abstentions?
I make it, yeah, 5-4, 5 against and 2 abstentions. That's correct, Chair.
Okay, in which case I'll use my casting vote as chair to approve the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Thank you. Okay, if we can move on then to item number 3, which is the ex-co-op buildings and car park, Abbey Street, Nuneaton. Claire?
Thank you, Chair. This is a hybrid application consisting of a full application for the demolition of buildings, erection of a hotel with associated access, car parking and landscaping, and an outline application including access on the remainder of the Abbey Street car park and buildings fronting, including properties to the rear, for a mixed-use town centre development comprising flexible use for retail, leisure, restaurants, makerspace, medical uses, residential, multi-storey and surface car parking with associated means of access, public plaza for public and other events, public realm and landscaping. The development is likely to be delivered in 3 phases. Phase 1 is the delivery of the hotel under the full application. Phase 2 will include the proposed food hall, restaurants, residential accommodation, medical health care facilities, the first leisure uses and the multi-storey car park. And phase 3 would see the development of the final leisure unit adjacent to the hotel. The application is being reported to committee as it is a major application involving council-owned land. An objection from Councillor Condacourt has been received as detailed on the addendum, raising issues with cycle access. I will pick up this point later on in the presentation. In terms of the principle of the development, policy DS2 of the Borough Plan sets out the hierarchy and roles for each settlement in the Borough, with Nuneaton having the primary role for employment, housing, town centre, leisure and service provision. Then, proposed hotel and mixed-use development. Policy TC1 of the Borough Plan sets out the new office, retail and leisure floor space requirements for the town centre, which the proposals would contribute to. The proposed development comprises a mix of town centre uses and is divided into development plots by which individual but flexible uses have been allocated within Class E and C3, including flexible retail and restaurant space, leisure spaces, workshop space for local makers, a medical healthcare centre, apartment and a multi-storey car park. The overall maximum floor space by use class is just over 25,500 square metres. The aim of policy TC2 is to ensure that town centre development proposals do not undermine or adversely impact the vitality, viability, character of the area and overall vision for the town centre. The proposed mix of uses are considered to be acceptable in principle under this policy. These are considered to be appropriate town centre uses that would complement each other, and they are in accordance with the overall vision for the Nuneaton Town Centre. A town centre's area action plan is to be produced as part of the Borough Plan. A public consultation on the issues and options document recently closed, and the responses will inform the drafting of the preferred options document later in 2021. The Abbey Street car park is identified as an opportunity site in the action plan that could potentially accommodate a mix of uses. The former co-op store site is identified as an opportunity site to complement the Abbey Street car park site to form a link between Abbey Street and Queen's Road. The proposal is in keeping with these identified opportunity sites. The proposal will also support the aspirations of the Transforming Nuneaton project. This is a project between Warwickshire County Council and the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council to deliver the transformation of the Nuneaton town centre by implementing mixed-use regeneration for boosting economic growth. The vision is to transform Nuneaton into a prosperous town centre. The aim is to create a town where people choose to live, with high quality, easy, accessible town centre housing and a strong and diverse leisure offer, a place to do business with excellent transport connections and high quality office space for all entrepreneurs, a place to shop with a mix of national, independent and specialist retailers, and also a place to visit through the creation of high quality public realm and enhancing the heritage and cultural opportunities. The Transforming Nuneaton initiative has identified the Abbey Street car park as a potential development site for a mix of uses, including retail, residential, leisure and entertainment, along with on-site car parking provision. It has also identified the former co-op store as a potential link between Abbey Street and Queen's Road. The Transforming Nuneaton proposal is to use the site to create a new public square. The proposal is therefore in line with the aspirations of the Transforming Nuneaton initiative. In relation to housing needs and affordable housing, in terms of general market housing, policy H1 of the Borough Plan states that development is required to provide a mix of housing types, sizes and tenure based on the up-to-date strategic housing market assessment. The SMAR, which was produced in 2013, indicates there is a greatest need in the borough for 3-bed properties, followed by 2, then 4-bed. The proposed residential element is part of the outline application, so no further details of the house types, mix and tenure need to be provided at this stage. However, this policy should inform the future detail phase of the proposed residential element. Policy H2 of the Borough Plan requires 25% of all new developments to be affordable on sites of 15 dwellings or more. Housing have confirmed that the council would seek a 10-year split of 26% intermediate housing and 74% social or affordable rent. Whilst the residential element is within the outline application, Housing have stated that they would seek an affordable housing mix taking account of the council's housing register and strategic housing market assessment. The SMAR identified the highest long-term needs for affordable properties for 1-bed properties, followed by 2, then 3, and the least demand 4 or more bed. There was also high demand for accommodation to meet the needs of more elderly people. Any future reserve matters application should address the recognised affordable housing requirements. In terms of visual amenity, the hotel forms the full application and is proposed to the northwest corner of the site at the corner of Abbey Street and Rowan Ringway. It is a 7-storey building with a flat roof. It is not considered that this would appear over prominent in this location, particularly taking into account the former Ritz Cinema building, which is located on the other side of Abbey Street. That building is 5 storeys high and is considered that the proposed hotel would complement the height of that building and vice versa. Due to its siting on a prominent corner, it is considered that part of the site is suitable for a taller building that would provide a landmark. The proposed hotel building and the former Ritz Cinema would provide a gateway into Abbey Street and the rest of the town centre. The design of the hotel building has taken inspiration from a number of buildings within the town centre, including the Town Hall, the Barclays building on Market Place and the former Ritz Cinema. The key elements used as inspiration include the strong features and a main entrance located on the corner of all 3 buildings, a lighter crown where the top level at each building has different elevational treatment, and accented horizontal lines where each building offers contrasting horizontal lines to further embellish the building. Those 3 elements have been translated onto the proposed building and have been incorporated into the simple form and patterns of a typical hotel development. The distinctive corner of the building is located along Abbey Street and is accented by a feature column. The windows are arranged in a repetitive pattern with contrasting cladding to add interest. The top 2 floors would be set slightly back with a different finish to visually minimise the height of the building. In terms of materials, the main body of the building will consist of red multi-tone brick, which is a characteristic within the Nuneaton town centre. The brickwork facade will be broken up with a repetitive window pattern and associated cladding panels in the bronze or gold colour. The ground floor will be set back and fully glazed to provide an active frontage along Abbey Street, with rear of ground floor being clad with a dark colour cladding for maintenance reasons. The visuals on screen show the proposed hotel on the right, which can be seen in context with the surrounding landscape and townscape, including the former Ritz Cinema building there. In relation to the rest of the site, as this is an outline application, no specific details have been submitted in terms of what the buildings will look like. However, the outline elements are defined by development parameters, which indicate minimum and maximum building heights and plot width and depth. A design and access statement has been submitted, which indicates that building heights would be between 2 and 5 stories, which is acceptable when taking into account existing building heights within the town centre. It is envisaged that the taller buildings will be located on the periphery of the site along around Ringway, which is less sensitive to change. Materials that are likely to be used are red brick for the residential and health building to lightweight materials such as metal and timber for the leisure buildings. The proposals would have an impact on the visual amenities of the area, but it is not considered this would be significant or detrimental, but would provide opportunities to redevelop a brownfield site and contribute to the regeneration and transformation of the Nuneaton town centre. Turning to residential amenity, in terms of the impact on neighbouring properties, the nearest residential property is a flat at first floor at number 98 Abbey Street, which is just up here. The proposed hotel will be the nearest element to this property and will be sited approximately 20 metres away. However, this distance is across the road, and also the hotel would not directly face the property, as the flat would look onto the car park entrance. To the west, the rear of the properties on High Street face the application site. That's those properties there. The nearest properties will be approximately between 26 to 37 metres away from the boundary of the site, with these distances also across around Ringway. It is also considered that the scheme can be developed to ensure the amenities of these properties are not significantly affected. A noise assessment has been submitted. Environmental health have been consulted and consider there are 2 elements to address. Noise, particularly plant noise, impacting on existing noise sensitive properties, and any noise from existing sources impacting on the proposed development. They have requested a condition that full details of all external plant and equipment is submitted for both the full and outline applications, which is covered under condition 20. With regard to the proposed residential element, the submitted noise assessment identifies that without mitigation, the proposed apartments may be impacted by unacceptable noise from surrounding sources. They have therefore requested a condition requiring the submission of a noise assessment and noise attenuation scheme, including glazing and ventilation, which is included as condition 18. In relation to the requirements of policy BE3, a sustainable design and construction statement has been submitted. This details the proposed development's holistic approach to sustainable design and construction and summarises the contribution it makes to create a more sustainable development. This includes high-level considerations and potential strategies for energy efficiency improvements and compliance with building regulations Part L, which is to do with the conservation of fuel and power. A BREEAM pre-assessment to provide a framework for the development to achieve a very good rating. Residential space which successfully responds to all questions within Buildings for Life 12 standard, and the consideration for future adaptability to suit changing social, economic and technological conditions. Planning policy have confirmed that this statement is acceptable and meets the requirements of policy BE3. In terms of highway safety and accessibility, access to the hotel car park is directly off Abbey Street at the northern end of the site. This access also serves the rest of the site, giving access to the surface parking and multi-storey car park. A secondary access offer around Ringway as a left-in only is also proposed. Minor works to the drop curb are proposed to include a taxi drop-off area on Abbey Street. County Highways have stated that the taxi drop-off area will require a traffic regulation order to ensure that it is not used to park in. They have therefore requested £5,000 towards the processing and implementation of the TRO, which will be included in the 106. In terms of parking provision, approximately 450 car parking spaces would be provided, 37 of which serve the hotel. 2 of the spaces serving the hotel would be for disabled use. The remaining spaces would be distributed between the surface parking and multi-storey car park. There are currently 454 car parking spaces on the site. The council does not have currently any saved car parking standards, and therefore this level of provision is considered acceptable within the town centre. An independent traffic survey has been undertaken which surveyed the use of the car park on a working day. This showed that the existing car park only reached 48% occupancy at 11:45 a.m, that the car park was 16% occupied by 9 a.m, and 18% occupied at 5 p.m. There is also spare car parking provision within Nuneaton Town Centre, and that the current demand within this car park can be absorbed within existing car parks. A transport assessment has been submitted with the application. The assessment confirms that the total number of trips likely to be generated by the development is within the allowance previously assessed by Warwickshire County Council when it devised a strategic model in support of the Transforming the Nuneaton initiative. On this basis, vehicle trips arising from the development can be accommodated within the highway network, taking into account the improvements already planned and or committed. The impact of the development has been modelled, and the transport planning team at the county are satisfied that the development proposals can be mitigated. As part of the mitigation, it has been highlighted that there is a requirement for real-time car parking information. Car parking studies show that the capacity of the proposed car parking provision would be exceeded significantly on a Saturday. The studies showed that the Rope Walk car park did not have capacity for the overspill, but Harefield Road car park does. Therefore, drivers need to be informed before they get to Abbey Street that they need to divert to Harefield Road. This can be achieved by providing real-time information. It has been agreed between the applicant and County Highways that one real-time information sign would be placed on the western side of the Dandelion Fountain roundabout on the Ring Road, one on Corporation Street, and one on the westbound approach on the A444 at the roundabout of Harefield Road and the Astor access. County Highways are satisfied that this would cover all approaches to Abbey Street and direct drivers to Harefield Road car park. Condition 32 has been added up to the proposed multi-storey car park should not be brought into use until details of these signs have been submitted and have been installed. The NPPF outlines the need for planning to promote walking, cycling and public transport and to make the fullest possible use of these. It also states that growth should be focused on locations which are or can be made sustainable. The proposals aim to increase connectivity and permeability through the site. 2 new pedestrian routes are proposed on the north-south access through the site connecting Queen's Road and Abbey Street. These pedestrian routes will be situated either side of a proposed new public square situated centrally in the site and will be fronted by active uses on all sides. In addition to these primary routes, secondary pedestrian routes are proposed in an east-west direction to maximise permeability. The addition of pedestrian routes will also facilitate movement and connection to nearby public transport, including bus stops located on Rowan Ringway and Nuneaton train station. The site is considered to be in a sustainable location and accessible by non-car modes. The hotel development is to provide 15 cycle parking stands equating to 8 Sheffield stands or similar. Cycle parking will also be provided on the outline application. Further details of this and the precise provision and location will be provided by details required under condition 14. Objections have been raised by Councillor Condacourt regarding the lack of cycling provision and access. However, as the majority of the application is in outline, details such as cycle routes would be considered at the reserve matter stage. There is an existing cycle route that runs along Rowan Ringway and is not within the application boundary. The agent has confirmed that they have been informed that Warwickshire County Council are currently reviewing the route in order to make improvements and are in the process of determining a preferred option. They have also confirmed that there is certainly an opportunity for a cycle route to be considered through the site if found appropriate at the detailed design stage through the submission of the reserved matters applications. Framework travel plans for the hotel and wider uses have also been submitted. These set out that the key objectives are to set out actions to increase awareness of sustainable travel opportunities in the local area for residents, employees and occupiers, reduce dependency on the private car, particularly during peak hours, and reduce unnecessary travel to and from the site. In order to achieve these objectives, the travel plans provide a series of measures and initiatives which are to be implemented by the developer and operator as appropriate to encourage them to use sustainable transport and reduce the needs to travel. The proposed measures include things like the promotion of initiatives to positively encourage walking and cycling by ensuring the site has suitable cycle provision and legible pedestrian routes, measures to deliver suitable information across the site related to the use of public transport through the use of updated displays for bus timings, fares, ticketing, and potential funding for a bus season ticket voucher for future residents to further encourage travel by bus. In relation to flooding and drainage, the NPPF requires that consideration is given to the potential impact of flooding on new development, whilst also ensuring that the flood risk is not increased elsewhere as a result of it. It also sets out a sequential-based approach to the location of the development is to steer that away from the areas of highest flood risk. The majority of the site is within flood zone 1 and therefore has a low level of fluvial flood risk. However, parts of the site to the southern and western boundaries are within flood zones 2 and 3. A flood risk assessment has been submitted with the application. The Environment Agency have been consulted and have no objections subject to the development being carried out in accordance with that assessment and the mitigation measures detailed within it, which is included as condition 33. In terms of surface water drainage, a drainage strategy has been submitted. The objectives of the drainage strategy are to manage surface water runoff on site to minimise flood risk, to manage surface water discharge from the site so that it does not adversely affect third parties, and to ensure ongoing operation and maintenance through appropriate management and adoption. The strategy considers options for surface water drainage and recommends that permeable paving is used as the preferred strategy. The County Flood Risk team have reviewed the strategy and have no objections subject to conditions. With regards to contamination, a ground investigation report has been submitted with the application. This has reviewed previous intrusive investigations and also undertaken some intrusive investigation as part of the development. It concludes that further investigation and assessment works are required. Environmental Health have reviewed this report and have no objection subject to the inclusion of the 4 standard contaminated land conditions. In terms of air quality, an air quality impact assessment has been submitted with the application. This demonstrates that concentrations of the traffic pollutant nitrogen dioxide is predicted to be below the national limit value at all receptor locations in all future year scenarios with the development taking place. The predicted change in pollutant concentrations due to the operation of the development is predicted to be not significant. There will be a small increase in concentrations of pollutants and matter during the construction phase, which can be mitigated through a dust management plan condition. This is included as condition 9. Environmental Health have no objection subject to conditions covering a dust management plan, electric vehicle charging points, and that all gas-fired boiler installations should be a specified standard. In relation to ecology, a preliminary ecological appraisal and arboricultural assessment have been submitted. There is one statutory designated site within 2 kilometres of site, which is Ences Pool. However, due to the distance of being 1.7 kilometres away, it is not considered that this site will be significantly affected. The appraisal states that all habitats that are present, which are not hard standing or buildings, are small and restricted in value. However, some buildings have the potential to support protected species such as bats and nesting birds. In terms of bats, 10 buildings have been assessed for bat roosting potential. Of the 10 buildings assessed, 5 present the potential to support roosting bats, but their presence has not been confirmed. These buildings are located within phase 2 of the proposed development, and therefore the appraisal recommends that a phased approach to additional BAT surveys is undertaken prior to any work on phase 2 commencing, and that's covered under condition 15. The appraisal also states that any loss of habitat will be compensated through implementation of a range of replacement habitats within the proposed development in the form of BAT boxes on existing buildings. The Parks team have been consulted and have confirmed that appropriate survey work and assessment have been undertaken up to this point. They consequently have no objection, subject to conditions covering lighting, further survey work being undertaken, landscaping, cycle parking provision and ecological mitigation such as BAT boxes. In terms of heritage implications, a heritage statement has been submitted with the application. This identifies and assesses the local heritage assets that are at risk of being affected through their setting by future development of the site, particularly the former Ritz Cinema building, the Co-op building and the Nuneaton Town Centre conservation area. In relation to the former Ritz building, the heritage statement points out that although taller and designed to be of a contemporary nature, the proposed hotel would reinstate built development, provide context and address the existing fragmentary setting of the listed building. It also states there is simplicity and regularity to the hotel design to ensure that it would not compete with the distinctive form and prominence of the Ritz Cinema building. The proposed materials would also complement the building, and the recessed upper floors would lessen the visual impact at street level. The statement also says that the position of the Ritz Cinema and its contrasting style, height and massing in relation to neighbouring properties means that it currently has a degree of prominence within the street scene. The proposed hotel would reduce the prominence of the building to a degree, but not to the extent that its significance would be harmed. The National Amenities Society have been consulted, and from that, the organisation as the 20th Century Society have responded, who have confirmed they have no objection. Historic England who also have no objection. In terms of the Co-op building, the statement points out that there will be development of a suitable height adjacent to the locally listed Co-op building. The proposed multi-storey car park will be separated from this locally listed building by existing buildings lining Queen's Road. The car park would be clearly visible in views, but due to distance and separation would not detract or impede the ability to appreciate the distinctive Art Deco building. Although the historic frontage of the former Co-op building is not within the red line boundary for the application site, the boundary does abut this important part of the Nuneaton Town Centre's heritage. Although the former Co-op building is not nationally listed, it is of local significance, and any proposed development adjacent to it will still need to respect its character, appearance and significance. Further detailed assessment of this would be part of any reserved matters. In relation to the town centre conservation area, the site is not within the conservation area but adjoins it. So that's the boundary there, conservation area. The tallest proposed buildings, such as the hotel and multi-storey car park, are located furthest away from the conservation area towards the west of the application site, which would help to reduce the impact on the character of the conservation area. The hotel would be visible from Abbey Street and the conservation area, but this building would also be seen in relation to the former Ritz Cinema building. The development will need to make a positive contribution to the character, appearance and significance of the conservation area. Further detailed assessment of this would be part of any reserved matters. However, at this stage, it is considered that the Nuneaton Town Centre conservation area would be sustained, and subject to detailed design as part of any reserved matters, there could be an opportunity for enhancement. It is considered that, subject to detailed design, the proposed development could make a positive contribution to the character, appearance and significance of nearby heritage assets. In relation to archaeology, the proposed development lies within an area of archaeological potential located at least partly within the probable extent of the medieval settlement of Nuneaton. An archaeological assessment has been submitted with the application and concluded that whilst it's likely that the site will have been subject to relatively modern disturbance, there remains a potential for archaeological features and deposits dating from the medieval and post-medieval periods to survive across the site. Warwickshire County Council archaeology team have been consulted and requested that further archaeological work is undertaken, which is likely to include a combination of test pitting and trial trenching. They have also requested that a written scheme of investigation for a programme of archaeological I can't say that word, I do apologise, and a mitigation strategy are submitted, which is covered by condition 16. In relation to planning obligations, a number of contributions have been requested as detailed on the screen for things such as plain open space, healthcare, sports provision and a traffic regulation order. The applicant has agreed to pay these contributions. In conclusion, the site is a brownfield site within the Nuneaton Town Centre and complies with the policies within the Borough Plan and the aims and objectives of the Transforming Nuneaton initiative. The potential impacts of the proposed development in relation to the use of the land, residential amenity, visual amenity, highway safety, flood risk and drainage, contamination, air quality, ecology and heritage and archaeology have all been considered. The assessment has subsequently shown that there will be no adverse impact in some instances. However, where potential adverse impacts are identified, it would be possible to mitigate against these through the use of planning obligations and conditions. The recommendation is therefore approval, subject to conditions and the completion of a legal agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, again, thank you, Claire. I believe we have two speakers. If I can ask Councillor Condacor, and thank you very much for your patience as well, Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I always enjoy planning meetings, so I have enjoyed watching the rest of it. Can Claire put up the master plan again so I can talk to the plan, if that's possible, while I talk? Fundamentally, the Borough Council's declared a climate emergency, and this site is a massive opportunity to actually do some forward-thinking development. And I'm most disappointed that the site doesn't have a cycle route going north-south through the site. Cycle routes that go around the Rowan Ringway are inherently unattractive. And if you look at where the car park service road is, and there's that slip road in off the ring road, they're absolutely lethal for cyclists to have traffic coming in on a slip road like that. So the pedestrian route cutting through the middle of the site will be an ideal place to route a cycling route, and it would also give access to like the cinema. We cannot build a cinema and then not allow people to cycle to it. That is just nuts. People will cycle through it, through the pedestrian area. So it's far better to actually put on the site a clear desire line for cyclists to go north-south. The route around the East Rowan Ringway also is unsafe for vulnerable users. They don't like cycling, particularly in winter evenings, around a busy road with no visibility and no one looking after them. So from the crime and safety point of view, putting all the cyclists round the outside on the ring road is an absolute disaster. So I asked the committee add a condition in some way to actually ensure that somehow within the site there is an internal north-south cycling route, and I think that will actually help attract people, because if you're arriving at the site from the south or the north, you may arrive at the opposite end to where you want to park your bike and go to the cinema or the eating area. Second point I want to make is about heat. We've got massive roof space here for either solar panels or green roofs. That's not being adopted. And it mentions gas boilers. Although they're lower NO2 gas boilers, if we're actually doing a modern 21st century design, this really needs to have the housing as eco housing with ground source heat pumps. And if we're doing archaeology on the site and digging trenches, put some pipes in and use ground source heat pump. This development needed more study, and I think could be a lot better for it. And I ask you to defer the application till some of the sustainability things are improved and we have a clear idea of what's happening with the cycling route. Because cycling between the inner road and the outer road, the inner, is absolutely unsafe. And this hotel is going to cost the borough an awful lot of money. It's going to be losing thousands of pounds a week. So actually delaying this application for a few weeks while we sort out the cycle routes, green routes and things, actually will save the council tens of thousands of pounds, because we're building a loss-making hotel to start with. And it's only when all the other stuff gets and the regeneration is finished can a hotel possibly be profitable. So I don't feel there's any need to rush this application. And what we need to do is get the sustainability right. Thank you very much, Chair. And it might be your last meeting, I don't know, So have a pleasant rest of the meeting.
Thanks for that confidence.
No, it's just who knows what happens. So
Are there any points of clarification? Apart from Keith wanting me to lose the election.
no.
Are there any points of clarification? No, there aren't any.
Yeah.
Mr. Amal.
Miss. Hi, it's Miss, obviously.
Sorry.
No problem. Good evening, Chair and members. I'm Andrea Arnold of Turley, and I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant in support of the proposals. I endorse the officer recommendation to grant planning permission and can confirm that we are in agreement to all proposed conditions and the heads of terms for the Section 106. Members will be aware that this planning application represents the realisation of a key component of the Transforming Nuneaton vision, acting as a catalyst for the phased delivery of transformative growth. This site is the first and most critical to that programme, representing many years of work for the Council and its development partners. It's really important that planning permission is granted this evening so that development on the first phase can begin as quickly as possible. The proposals will deliver much needed investment, beginning with a stylish new hotel with a planned operator already signed up and ready to commence construction in the summer. Phases 2 and 3 of the development will see the area to the rear of the former co-op transformed into a vibrant public space with new public realm, commercial uses, new homes and a community medical centre. Delivery of development in these phases could start in the second half of 2022 or early 23, subject to securing outline permission tonight and following subsequent approval of reserve matters. The reserve matters will control the layout of these phases, including the precise positioning of buildings around the public plaza, the architectural appearance of buildings, and all other matters such as any new cycle routes and arrangements for hard and soft landscaping. Importantly, the new multi-storey car park will be delivered at the start of phase 2 to ensure there is enough parking provided, and this is secured by condition. Planning application is supported by robust assessments of the key issues and has been fully considered by your officers. No technical objections from statutory consultees have been raised, and the proposed development will deliver a significant number of planning and other benefits, including substantial investment by the Borough Council on a site identified for redevelopment, a boost to tourism by providing overnight accommodation of a standard that is not currently available in the Nuneaton town centre, high quality public realm, including a new space for spaces for events and outdoor eating, flexible space for start-up businesses and local makers requiring small spaces, new leisure uses which are not currently offered, which will encourage activity and attract people to visit in line with council policy. And finally, the proposal will generate substantial economic benefits during both the construction and operational phases of the development. Given these benefits, we respectfully request that members support officers' recommendation and approve the planning application. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And are there any points of clarification to Andrea, please? No, thank you. That being the case, can I move the recommendation, which is to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement and the conditions printed? Is that seconded?
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit disappointed in the design of the hotel, to be honest with you. We've got the old Ritz opposite. I consider it like a 1960s, 70s building. Would consider it a bit of an ugly building, really, and the hotel is going to be pretty much the same as it. At the planning stages and to the people doing the consultation now, I've stressed about living walls, green roofs, Wildflower highways, none of that seems to have been taken into account with this, Chair. It's now that we need to be thinking about these things, because this will affect everything. The green roofs, the living walls, it can reduce the energy consumption of the building, bring in wildlife into the town centre, and absorb the heavy rainfall from going to the drains and the rivers. So all things like that should be considered at this stage, and it would, in my opinion, look much better than what we've got in front of us, which is a concrete structure. But we are where we are, and we've got what we've got in front of us, with the recommendation of accepting it. And I don't see how we can really refuse it. So, in a bit of a corner again. Would also like to have seen a facility to attract people to the borough built before the hotel to put people up was put up. But like I say, that's where we are. Having said all that, Chair, perhaps on the future things that are put forward after the hotel, they will consider putting some of the green roofs and living walls in, and the wildlife highways. So I think we've got what we've got now, Chair, but please ask them to consider things in future. Thank you.
You're muted, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Councillor Watkins, I'm sure that the officers and the applicant will have heard those comments. Whether it's too late or not for some of the things, I don't know. Councillor Sargent.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'm all in favour for the town centre redevelopment. Unfortunately, looking at the picture of the building, and I assume that's what it's going to look like, it is quite ugly, and it I think some more work could have been done to sort of make that a little bit more attractive. I know that the old Ritz building is just a brick building, really, isn't it? It's just a big brick wall. But I do think a little bit more work could have been done on solar panels, living roofs, etc. So difficult one, because you don't want to vote against it because you want the work to start. But I do think the building could have looked a little bit better. It just looks like a sort of 70s knock-up, really. And that's it, really. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is an excellent application. It's good news for Nuneaton Town Centre, and I think everybody involved and services that have been involved in bringing this application forward, or in this development forward, need congratulating. It's something that is desperately needed in Nuneaton to trigger off the remainder of the development of the Abbey Street area. I shall be voting for this. It's been a long time coming, and I think it's excellent news for Nuneaton.
Thank you. Councillor Tandy.
Thank you, Chair. I seconded this motion because I do believe that this is a fantastic way forward for the borough, in the sense that it's something that's needed, and not just the hotel. The hotel will attract other major people who want to come in, eateries, and many other things that have been described to us in the descriptions that Claire gave. So I'm more than happy to support this, Chair, because I think it's the start. I do get a bit tired, Chair, of constantly hearing people talking the town down. This, I hope, cannot be talked down, although I suspect there will be people who will try. But I really think that this is the start of what we've been looking for quite some time. And I'm really pleased that the funding has become available to do so. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anybody else indicating, so I've got a couple of points that I'd like to make myself. I think this is it's a real opportunity now for Nuneaton Town Centre to be transformed. I don't think there's anybody that's not aware of the Transforming Nuneaton initiative, and the policy side of it via the Cabinet and Council have already dealt with that. But we are a planning applications committee considering whether the design and other impacts are the correct thing. I think some very good points been made about the green side of things, particularly into green walls, green roofs, things like that. I don't know whether it's too late for people still to consider what can be done on that, even if it's something, in the central part of the highway where you can have this type of stuff that helps absorb the pollutants. And in regard to design, that's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? Everything we do, we're probably not going to all agree that we like a particular type of design. I actually think this will, if it gets passed, of course, if it gets passed, I think once it's built, it will look a lot better than how you see it on a piece of paper. There's no doubt, and we all know about it, and it's been particularly highlighted through this dreadful COVID period about town centre uses. It doesn't look like we're ever going to go back to the traditional retail uses of town centre. So this mixed use type of development, I believe, is exactly the type of thing we need. And I look forward, this is a massive investment into Nuneaton. But, rather flippantly, I suppose, but I will say, if you don't want it down there, we'll have some of the money spent in Bedworth. But there's certainly plans for Bedworth with their transformation there as well. And, some people, I've seen it on social media and other places, say, well, why do we need a hotel? No, we do need a hotel. If you look at any events that are on at the National Exhibition Centre, even other places around, there's not enough hotel accommodation in the area. I've been trying to encourage somebody to build a small to medium hotel in Bedworth as well for exactly that same reason. Great connections to the motorway, NEC just down the road, the Rico Arena just around the corner, those type of things. So I welcome it, and I look forward to other areas of the borough benefiting from it in the long term. So, right, thank you very much. It was a really interesting debate. The only thing I'd finish on was I was slightly concerned, and I'm not being overcritical of Councillor Condacor, but his comment about a loss-making hotel, I don't know where he can even get that from. He doesn't know that, and I don't think people would be proposing it if they thought it was. Anyway, Wahida, it's been moved and seconded, the recommendation. Could you go through the list, please?
Certainly, Chair. Please, can you indicate either for, against, or abstaining from in respect of the motion? Councillor Hancock's.
I'm assuming Councillor Gran hasn't come back into the meeting.
No, I can't see that he's in the meeting, Chair.
Okay. Okay.
Do you want me to call his name anyway?
Yeah, do it so we're covered.
Councillor Gran.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hancock's.
4.
Councillor Lloyd.
4.
Councillor Pandahar.
4.
Councillor Phillips.
4.
Councillor Rudkin.
4.
Councillor Sargent.
4.
Councillor Shepherd.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Tandy.
4.
Councillor Tromans.
4.
Councillor Watkins.
4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
That's unanimous, Chair. It's carried.
Okay, that's unanimous. Let's hope things get started and we look forward to those improvements. Just before we move on to I believe the final item, just in case, can I move a suspension of standing orders to enable us to complete the meeting if we go past 8 o'clock?
Seconded.
Is that agreed? Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to. Okay, then, thank you. Right, it's so apologies, Rebecca. It's over to Rebecca. I knew there was a change at some point.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Let me just share my screen.
It's probably I should say, actually, just before you start, apologies for those people that the report on the actual agenda, there was a little mistake in putting that forward, and it's actually you should have had a replacement, a different one, but Rebecca will explain.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this application is a full application for a replacement front door and surround at 111 Earls Road, Nuneaton. No objections have been received. However, the application has been called into committee at the request of Councillor Phillips. 111 Earls Road is a 2-storey semi-detached property located within the Abbey Conservation Area. The property is identified as being designed by H. Mayo and Son and is classed as having a high architectural and historical value within the Abbey Conservation Area appraisal. The right to change windows and doors under permitted development have been removed from this property via an Article 4 direction, which was introduced in 2008. The existing front door is wooden with a small glass panel in the centre. The door currently features a wooden frame and surround, which is solid wood at the bottom, with decorative stained glass panels to the top and sides. Currently, the wooden door and surrounds are white, the front door is navy, and the stained glass panels feature a coloured floral design. The applicant initially applied for a composite door with a UPVC double glazed surround with panels of Pilkington autumn glass. However, officers considered this to be unacceptable within the conservation area, and amendments have since been agreed to show a like-for-like replacement in terms of design, materials, size and colour. The replacement door is to be wooden, and the surround is to feature wooden panels with sections of stained glass to match the existing. The key issues to consider within the assessment of this application are the impacts on residential amenity and the impacts on the character and visual amenities of the Abbey Conservation Area. As this application is for a replacement door and surround only, it is considered that it would have very little detrimental impact on the privacy and amenity of neighbouring properties. This application was originally for the removal of the wooden door, wooden frame, surround and decorative stained glass for it to be replaced with UPVC, composite and Pilkington glass autumn. However, the use of UPVC and composite materials were considered to be unacceptable as they were in contrary to the Abbey Conservation Area appraisal. The appraisal states that one of the main threats to the heritage value of an area is the widespread use of inappropriate materials, particularly plastics for windows and doors. The original proposals were also in contrary to policies BE4 of the Borough Plan and paragraphs 130 and 192 of the MPPF, as officers considered that the new materials would not make a positive contribution or retain the character of the conservation area. The applicant has since submitted amended plans to show a like-for-like door and the frame replacement which utilises wood rather than composite and UPVC. These materials are considered to be acceptable as they would appear visually similar to the existing and aid in retaining the existing character and architectural value of the property. The applicant has expressed over email that they would like to replace the glass surround like for like. However, they did not provide any plans or images to directly show the proposed glass replacement. Therefore, a condition has been included which states that prior to the installation Therefore, a condition has been included which states that prior to the installation of the stained glass replacement, details must first be submitted to and approved in writing by the council. As the replacements are to be like for like, the character of the property will be retained. This is compliant with policies BE3 and BE4 of the Borough Plan, paragraphs 130 and 192 of the MPPF in the Abbey Conservation Area Appraisal. Therefore, the recommendation is for approval. However, as the applicant has not provided plans showing the design of the glass replacement, officers recommend that a condition should be placed to ensure that the replacement is satisfactory before it is installed. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I think you're muted, Chair.
Stick on the hang a bit by now, wouldn't you? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Rebecca. In which case, can I move the recommendation, which is the amended one, which is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions printed? Is that seconded?
I'll second that, Chair. Councillor Phillips.
Okay, thank you. Any member? No. I just want to say, bearing in mind, you know, we've had some big applications and things there tonight, but things like this are just as equally as important. And it's really, I'm really pleased that the applicant has now changed their mind on the design and appearance and the materials going to be used. So I'm happy. I was happy to move that. So unless I see anybody put their hand up to object to it, I'll assume that we're all okay with it. Anybody with a problem? In which case, that is approved. Can I just thank everybody for coming along today, and as I say, thank you very much for those people that won't be at future planning meetings. So I say good night and stay safe and well, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Can I just confirm the live stream has ended, Chair?
Oh, yeah.